Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining Ongoing Operations webinar series, Lattes and Learning. I'm Amy McCoy. I'm the Marketing Manager at Ongoing Operations, and today we're going to be discussing updating your BCP in a virtual landscape. We have Tim Daugherty, who's our Director of Business Continuity Planning Group at OGO, with us this afternoon. And as we go through the webinar, just a few housekeeping items. Please feel free to type in any questions that you have. I'll serve as a moderator and feed those into Tim. We'll also reserve time at the end for open Q&A, as always, if you guys have joined us for part of the series in the past. And as well, a recording of the webinar will be available and emailed out to you at the conclusion. In case you want to share it with teammates or relay any section you may have missed, no worries there. We also have a copy of the slides if you're interested in those. The ones that we're presenting, it's in the handout section on your screen. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tim to kick us off for this installment of Lattes and Learnings. So Tim, grab your coffee, and Tim, take us away.
All right, thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our presentation today. My main focus is going to be basically to help people get thinking about updating their business continuity plans within this new virtual landscape that we're working in. Amy, do you have the slides up?
Yes, I do. Bear with me, and we'll be going in just a second.
Okay.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, what we're going to be talking about today, like I had mentioned, is updating your crisis management plan for a virtual landscape. Amy, I'm having issues trying to advance. Here we go. So our agenda today is taking out what is a virtual landscape. What is Tim talking about this virtual landscape? Also covering communication plans, talk a little bit about our command center, the plan access, and then also plan training and testing, and of course, answering any questions that you may have. So before we get into this, what is a virtual landscape and what's going on in Tim's mind here, I wanted to kind of talk quickly about our current landscape or configuration where we're at right now. So one of the main things is with our current setup, in our plans, our alternate sites that we take a look at, we're really focused initially before this whole pandemic broke out, was focused on, well, I have to basically take this whole department or this group of people and move them together to another alternate site or a hot site or wherever they could work together, whatever we had identified as our alternate site location. Well, of course, things have changed. So when we're talking about commonly, using the word virtual, we're meaning like online through the use of a computer or device. We use it to define an interaction that doesn't really take place in an in-person or physical environment, such as the office that we've actually dealt with. So our virtual landscape configuration is really focused on individual remote workers and their locations that they're working from. And also it takes into consideration their connectivity. So most of us that have had people working remotely now, a lot of people have been basically working from home. So we haven't had these pods or these alternate location sites that we had initially identified where we're going to send groups of people or whole departments to actually get set up. So knowing your virtual landscape configuration is very important. Imagine you and some other plant owners aren't together at the office or the same location, and as an event that actually starts to impact the credit union's business processing. What's the plan to coordinate and facilitate the recovery of the processes, the systems, and the facilities? So what's the plan to communicate? Do you have a plan in place? And is it still the same plan that we've had previously that may not work? What's the plan to recover our systems? Now, I'm not really going to get into system recovery today a lot. I may touch on disaster recovery a little bit, but this is more about business continuity. Redirecting access for the recovered systems to those remote employees that are working from home. It's not just going to that one alternate site. We've actually recovered the systems. Now we got to try to figure out how we're getting everybody else linked in from these multiple sites. And then also we've talked about in our different planning and everything that we had previously was what can we do manually? Well, really, a lot of manual processing can't happen from home nowadays. I mean, if you're in the office and the systems have an issue, or we have a business disruption to one of our processes, we can try to figure out a manual workaround. But usually, when we're working from home now, that's really not an option. So sometimes we can start actually taking a look at maybe more of, let's start leaning on our vendors. Let's have them start, what can they do to stand in to help us with our processing. So as we're taking a look at this, virtual landscape configuration, how it is now, it is different than what we were actually planning on before this whole pandemic started and kind of shifted our way of thinking now. So what I'd like to do is, Amy, if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead, let's set up the first poll question, please. So here with our poll question, my question to you guys is, does your credit union have a communications plan?
Yeah, so guys, you can go ahead and click in to vote. We'll give it just a few seconds so everyone has an opportunity to respond. Tim, we're almost at 100% voted. All right, and not surprisingly, I don't think here are our results, Tim.
Yes, I'm not very surprised at the results. So one of the best things that I've seen, and a lot of people are actually working with, are updating their communications plans. As we move forward, it really, I consider this the most critical piece of the puzzle when we're dealing with our business continuity plans, is your communications plan. Everybody who's on this webinar right now, I'm sure has already worked through incidents before or actual disasters, and you realize that having that communications plan in place and keeping it up to date is vital to actually continuing to make sure that we get to that recovery point in a quickly and timely manner. So as we know from the tabletop exercises, like I said, in live events, this ability to communicate, it's key. So we can get things facilitated and moving forward in an organized fashion, performing those recovery efforts and tasks, in a timely manner. So your plans need to identify who or which departments will be the communicator. So, and I'm not sure if a lot of credit unions are using that word as the communicator or whatever, but I like to use that in my plans. And basically, the communicator is going to be the sending out all the communications to staff and members. Now, okay, having this identified will help eliminate the confusion. And it's okay if there is more than one communicator, but we have to have that identified in our communications plan. So if one department like HR will communicate internally to, let's say, the staff, and then another department will communicate externally to media and so forth, like your PR department, that's fine. We can do that, but it just has to be identified so there is less confusion. I've seen too many times where there's an incident that's actually happening, and the delay in messaging getting out to the staff or the media or to vendors, it's being delayed because one department thought that another department was actually sending out that message. So we want to make sure that it's clear on who the communicator is and what they're going to be communicating. So who is their audience? So we need to make sure that that's identified as we walk through and continue to update our plans here. And as I mentioned, I hit on the communications plan, because it is key. It's vital in everything that we're doing. So no matter what type of updates you're taking a look at on your plans, you should always, and remember to take a look at your communications plan. Make sure that that's being reviewed multiple times throughout the year. So what I'd like you to do then is, not now, but, focus on what I'm talking about here, but I'd like you to take some time to look back on how you communicated during the coronavirus, the initial outbreak, and then when it actually became into the pandemic. So, hopefully you've had debrief meetings, by now, and if not, you can still hold debrief meetings, but you can look back at those meeting minutes and look at the lessons learned around your communications. So, some questions you want to ask yourself are, do we need to update our communications channels that we're using? What channel worked best for staff? What channel worked best for member communications? And initially, it may not have been the first channel that you were using and that you thought of, initially sending out communications to the different audiences. Maybe you had to switch over because you found another one that was actually working better for you. So, in the plan, I want you to identify the primary, secondary, and a tertiary channel. I like to always have a backup to my backup. Those of you that I partner with and I work with on your your BCP plans, how I am. I like to have a backup to my backup. I'm not paranoid, but I just like to have that comfort feeling there. So, we want to make sure that we bring in the technology department, your IT, your IS, whoever it may be. We want to bring them into the discussion. We want to find out any technology hurdles or blockers that maybe we don't know about, but that we should consider as far as choosing the different types of communication channels that we have. So maybe your primary and secondary communication channels are using the same technology. And if that technology is down, then all of a sudden you're looking at your tertiary or your third choice for communications as your first and only choice of communication. So, technologies could be like internet versus cellular or something like that when I talk about that. So, it's really key to make sure that you don't just have, a primary and secondary channel, but we want to make sure that we have that third channel that we can always have available to use should the first and second go down. So taking a look at, the command center here. Let's go ahead and when we were initially setting up plans, everybody was always thinking about, okay, well, we've identified physical locations like a boardroom, a conference room, whether it's in the office, the headquarters, or in a hotel room, or maybe there's a branch that we could go to set up if our conference room and boardrooms aren't available. So, do we have a virtual command center identified in our plan? And if not, it needs to be. You need to have something in there that, because in this day and age, there's so many threats to your business that can cause people not to be located together. A virtual command center is often preferred, the preferred way for the crisis management team to actually meet. So, and it's been years that when I'm dealing and working with other credit unions in recovery in disasters or incidents, a lot of times our crisis management team cannot be together, in one location. So what ends up happening is we're pulling people together on this virtual, into this virtual command center or on the phone. So, one of the biggest things is when you're taking a look at creating this virtual command center is making sure that you have a pre-configured conference bridge. Now, whether that bridge and that number is through your telephone system that you currently have, I would also suggest a backup, because if your internal telephone system is in-house and it goes down, then your conference bridge is going to go down. But something you can do is take a look. They have some vendors out there that actually provide a static, here is your phone number and here is your PIN. and you can put that directly in your plan, and that doesn't actually change as you move forward. So everybody can have that in their cell phone, they can have that in the plan, so you can look it up and it doesn't change, unlike some other technologies where you actually have to log in to your Outlook or your email to actually create a meeting and send it out to people, and it just gets a little cumbersome. So I really like to have that one where it's a static phone number and then a pin that you can actually have for the virtual command center. So when people are kind of, in a rush, something's happening and people need to focus, they don't have to try to, find this phone number. It's right there for them. Okay. So I'd like to actually, Amy, if you go ahead and go with our second poll question here for everyone. So where do you store your primary business continuity plans? So there's a hard copy on site, a hard copy off site, like in somebody's trunk or whatever it may be, your car, electronic copy on site or electronic copy off site.
Yeah, so we'll give everyone just a few minutes or a few seconds here to put in their responses to the poll. Like we're getting some good stuff in, Tim, to share shortly. And on a positive note, it doesn't look like anyone is storing their plan in the trunk of someone's car. So with that, Tim, here are the results.
I love it. Okay, great. Yes, yes. So for those of you that are storing your plan on site with electronic copy, your primary, hopefully you do have a hard copy that you're taking it off site. But this is really one of the biggest things that even though you have an electronic copy, I still like to have a hard copy. Now, I'm not saying print out everything, but print out some of the important things that you may need. As we were talking about our communications plan previously, we want to take a look at printing out our staff contact list, our vendor contact list, so we have that information. And it's not just stored possibly in our phone, because if our phone dies and we don't have a charger or whatever, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but everybody knows what happens there. And then, you actually can print out your action steps, whether you're part of the crisis management team, just print out your action steps that you need to do, your plan your tasks that you need to do. Or if it's a department level, you can print out the department level plan. Here's their action steps that they need to do. So instead of printing out everything and all your supporting documents and having this 3-ring binder that's like 5 inches thick, you can get away with a lot smaller plan that will get you moving forward until you can actually get access to your electronic version wherever you may have it. So with your plans, they may reside electronically on a BCP portal of some type or stored once again, on the network someplace. You may have that backup hard copy that you want to keep off-site or carry with you. I know, so there are some BCP professionals that actually carry around in their laptop bag. They have their plan with them. So, don't think that it's weird that you're carrying around a plan. And you also want to confirm that everyone who needs access to those plans, including alternates, have access to the plan. So we want to go through and make sure that it's not just those primary people, because if those primary people are on vacation or just unavailable, maybe their cell towers and power and everything is out and you can't get a hold of them. We need to make sure that their alternate has access to the plan, and they've actually seen it, and they can help with the roles and responsibilities for that department and or team. So with a big thing with permissions to electronic plans. So if your plans are electronic version, whether it's like some sort of document with a password on it, make sure that you're not the only one that knows a password. Share that so people can actually get into it. And then also, if it's actually out there on, in the portal, we need to make sure that that software is set up properly, that people have the proper permissions to get in to see the documentation or the plans or the information that they need to see, and no more. So they don't need to get necessarily all around. I would definitely, if you have things in a portal, I would take a look at it. If you're not a smaller credit union where people need to see things, I would, start locking down HR and IT or RIS, because there is some sensitive information that could possibly be out there in your portal. So we just have to be careful of the security on the actual site and what people have access to also. So it's not just accessing, but we want to make sure that we don't have too much access. So moving on here to our training and testing. So a lot of people, they know it's like, okay, well, too many times I see people coming into the tabletops and it's the primary plan owners only. Okay, what I like to see and what really helps build out your plans and make them stronger are actually put the alternates in. Let them run with the ball. The primaries may come in, but sit beside the alternates and let the alternates run the plan and walk through the tabletop exercise. And you'll be amazed at the different thinking and different ideas that can come out from those tabletops with having someone else take a look at your plans. It's really good because if something happens, once again, where people are unavailable and they need to step in, you need to have that alternate step into a departmental plan. They can jump into that role. And, what could even be worse is if somebody is an alternate for a crisis management team role and they've never seen the crisis management team, or they don't know what the roles and responsibilities are for that position. It's going to make for a very interesting recovery, having that person there. So we want to make sure that we're training people, and it's not just your alternates and stuff, but when you have new people come into the credit union, we want to let them know, hey, we have this plan in place. Talk to your manager when you get down there, your department head or whoever it is, to learn about what your department's plan is. And that'll actually help strengthen your plans as you go along too. So talk about our testing here. Tabletop exercises are a great way for people to get into, one room around a table and walk through a scenario and learn different information about what other departments and teams are going to be doing. They got to get a whole picture what the plan is for the credit union itself. Well, nowadays, of course, that people are still working remotely, et cetera. I would go ahead and challenge you right now is just walk through a scenario. Start out with maybe one or two people in with the scenario saying, hey, this has happened. Maybe we had an issue, a fire at the headquarters, and there's like nobody there or whatever, and it got reported back through facilities, and just start calling people, inviting them into that virtual command center and actually walking through that fire scenario at the headquarters. And you're going to really see how different it is than just sitting around a table talking about it versus having to actually reach out, bring people into the command center and talk about the plans and how things are going to happen. You're going to have to talk about, like I said before, connectivity. It's going to be a little bit different when we recover the servers. That's fine, but how are we getting people that are working from home and these remote workers? How are we getting them connected now? They're not just all co-located over in this alternate site that we had pre-planned. And then the plan access. One thing that I like to do is confirm that people do have access. Make them log in. So you may be in the middle of a meeting or something or whatever, you have a little extra time, ask people, hey, go ahead and log into your portal, or that'll help make sure that they have the proper login credentials and they can get in there. You can ask people, okay, where's your hard copy, if they have a hard copy, et cetera. So we can do those sort of little tests just to have everybody get logged in and know where things are at, make things a little fun as a surprise. People love surprises. And then with your communications channels, I would recommend testing these quarterly, whether it's just one text message going out to people, just letting them know, hey, we're testing. This is what we're going to be using. Should we have an event occur, this is how we'll get information to you. And then also, I know there are credit unions that are out there that when there's a new person or new people that are onboarded, they're actually testing with those people to make sure that they have the proper contact information for those people, the new staff. And then the staff is already prepared saying, oh, okay, well, this is how you're going to contact me during an actual event. And then finally here, as with everything, security, it's huge. So, with people working remotely, it's really one of the biggest things that we have to work with and deal with. There's a lot of bad actors out there right now. So I definitely recommend, testing or performing some type of a remote access security assessment or something like that, just to make sure that everything is okay in your network. Security is huge with everything that we're doing. So, I know we've been dealing with the current pandemic events for months now, and people are getting a little tired of talking about BCP, but now is the actual time when we need to double down on our planning efforts. It's time to review the impact and differences between having a whole department relocate to one alternate site versus each person from that department at a different location, like their houses or their homes. So we want to use this live event that we're actually going through right now to improve our communications, the business continuity and disaster recovery plans, and also, include your virtual landscape configuration that you have at your credit union. And with that, thank you very much. I'll hand it back over to Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So please feel free to go ahead, and if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the questions box, and then we'll go ahead and I can ask those to Tim and serve as a moderator. We had a couple that came in while you were talking, Tim, so we'll go ahead and start with those. So the first one was you recently mentioned this idea of security and how important it is. Should we be doing the remote assessment of our security service ourselves, or do you recommend having a third party do it?
I think it really all depends on the size of your credit union. If you do have some internal CISO that can actually do that sort of thing, you can rely on them to do it. But usually, what is helpful and what I've noticed is to have a third party do it, because you can get a third party report or a write up and be able to give that to your examiners or auditors and let them see that, look, it's the what do they call the proverbial fox guarding the hen house. So I would definitely recommend having a third party take care of that.
Great, thank you. We had another question regarding the alternates that you mentioned in terms of the plan, and having the alternates also walk through it and making sure we are prepared. The question was, how many alternates do you recommend? Is it just one, or do you have a certain number that you recommend?
So once again, it's going to be also depending on the size of your credit union. But as you saw when I went with the communications channels, I like to have a backup to my backup. So preferably if you can have your primary and two alternates, that would be great. But it's going to be dependent on the size of the actual department itself, and and also the size of your credit union if you have enough people to do that. So just having one alternate is great. And if you're a department of one, it's okay. Get an alternate from somewhere else, talk to another department, say, hey, who could I possibly have as an alternate should I not be here, to be able to run our plan? And maybe that manager or department head will be able to pick it up for you and be able to run that and let their alternate pick up their department plan. So.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, Tim. That was the last question that I received in the chat. I do want to, of course, say, as always, if any of our listeners out there have any questions that come up that are either BCP related or anything else, we've got up on the screen Tim's email address. You can also always reach out to us at info@ongoingoperations.com, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with whoever you'd like to speak with. And again, I just want to thank you, Tim, for taking the time to talk to us about BCP and during this this incredible pandemic that's really stressed the importance, particularly in a virtual landscape.
Yes, well, thank you, Amy, and thank you for everybody for taking time out this afternoon to chat with me. Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a wonderful afternoon.